welcome to another episode of Imagination Nature. This will be our final episode for December of 2016, and looking forward to another exciting year ahead of us. I want to thank LTV for being so supportive with the show and all the viewers. I'm very happy to put these little films together for you. However, I do have some interesting things to show you, some things I've been hanging on to, some new stuff. I think I have enough to give you a nice new and final of 2016 episode of Imagination Nature. Sit back, bundle up if you need to. Enjoy the episode. Hi folks, I'm at my favorite spot here at the Nature Trail, and I want to show you something very special. Something I came upon several weeks ago, but left it undisturbed because it was a bit cold still. Now it's the perfect temperature, and I want to share with you something very special. Just another special thing about this beautiful nature trail. Here folks, we have a beautiful marbled salamander. Now, this is kind of a rare find, especially above ground, because these guys spend most of their time in burrows or under logs and such. However, this is just a beautiful specimen, and it's right here in our home. It's not an endangered species, but he is of special concern, which is a couple steps down. Special concern, threatened, and endangered. And this little guy is of special concern. Now, these marbled salamanders can grow up to 4 inches long. They have a lifespan of about 8 to 10 years. They spend most of their time underground in burrows or under logs, which I kind of found this thing under a piece of rotten wood. What's interesting about these salamanders is they rarely will even touch water. However, they do require a moist or damp woodland habitat, which is what they favor. This is cool because this is a great example here. I can tell this one is a female, and the reason you can tell is the white bandings are gray. The females are gray, and the males are more white. But as you can see, the color patterns on this little guy is amazing. He's not too old, but he's beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna let this guy go back under his log, and maybe we'll come check him periodically and see if he gets bigger. It's a female. Maybe someday she'll lay eggs and increase the population here at the Nature Trail with more of these beautiful animals. What I'd really like to find is a tiger salamander, which is an endangered species here, and I'm sure if we looked close enough, we would surely find one here, if not anywhere else. This would be the place. This place is magic, and it's full of so many beautiful and wonderful species. And I'm glad I was able to locate and share this one with you all. Okay, let's move on. I'm standing in the woods here with a beautiful red-tailed hawk. I'm not really sure what's wrong with him, other than the fact that he will not move. I'm literally 4 feet away, and he seems to be okay with me being here. He's not being vocal. I don't see any visible injuries, but something has happened, obviously. I mean, He's just sitting here looking at me. And as you'll see, I'll move around. It's okay, sweet pea. I'm going to get up nice and slow, okay? Nice and easy. It's okay. Don't you worry. No, 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 no. It's okay. And I'm going to move around here. Look over here, sweet pea. Come see me. Come look. Let's see. I've switched sides, yet he doesn't turn his head instantly. He's kind of bobbing back and forth a little bit. I don't know if you can make that out. Almost like he's dazed. However, I don't see, once again, I don't see any injury visibly. I don't see any loose feathers on his head or around his body. I don't see any prey on the ground that he might be here waiting to get at. I'm just a little bit boggled at about his behavior and obviously his demeanor. It's okay. Come on, sweetie. Keep walking. Alright, I'm going to have to get her on the net because she's injured. We got to get her either some help Can I get you in here, sweet pea? Can I get you, okay? I got her in the carrier without having to use the net. She let me pick her up. So I'm going to gently get her back and see if we can't get her some help immediately. So now, folks, I'd like to add this little segment of something special that Dee and I had the opportunity to do this past November. We went to a wildlife rehabilitation conference up in Buffalo. So we took advantage of that and decided to spend a few days at one of the wonders of the world, and that would be Niagara Falls. And I'd like to show you now some interesting clips from our little trip upstate New York and, of course, over into Niagara Falls. So enjoy this little segment. melanism is a development of the dark pigment melanin. It's actually the opposite of albinism, which we associate with living things that are albino. Both eastern gray and fox squirrels can create the melanastic subgroup that we call the black squirrels. It's a rare mutation that can occur naturally wherever eastern gray or fox squirrels live. In other words, wherever you have a large population of eastern gray squirrels or fox squirrels, you're always susceptible to have this mutation that will create the black squirrel. And I've had 2 calls last year with pictures of black squirrels in Springs. So it was interesting to know that even in an area where they would be more rare, which would be our area, we still do have sightings. Whereas upstate New York, in the Buffalo area on towards Niagara Falls, they're quite abundant. Much so that even in Niagara Falls, as we see, because of the tourism, they get hand-fed a lot and they become quite domesticated, much like our eastern gray squirrels act here. Why? Simply because they are the same squirrel. I want to just give you an update on Scurvy real fast and all his little buddies. Being that they're here and they feel safe here, we allow them to be here. We have some squirrel houses we've put up for them. Some of them have their own nests that they're quite comfortable with staying in there. And whenever they feel like having a nut or two, they know they can come to the door and get one. But most of the day they are out foraging for themselves and doing what they're supposed to do. Good morning, Mr. Scurvy. How are you today? You want to come get something? Good boy. Well, there's Scurvy. Hey folks, welcome back. I'm here with our special guest for this episode, good friend of mine, great environmentalist type, Colleen Henn. And Colleen is part of the wonderful Surf Rider Foundation out here on the eastern end of Long Island. And her expertise with the foundation is the Clean Water Initiative. And Colleen, if you could, tell us a little bit about what that is.
So Surf Rider Foundation is dedicated to the protection and enjoyment of our oceans, waves, and beaches. So within that, I work for the Blue Water Task Force. That's the water quality monitoring program. So what we do is we go to local beaches and we test the water to make sure it's safe for recreation. We test over 40 locations in eastern Long Island. We have 2 labs set up right now, actually. One in Montauk with Concerned Citizens of Montauk, and one at Stony Brook in Southampton. So we actually process samples both in at CCOM in the lab with Chris Gilbert's lab. We've established a lot of partnerships out here, for example with Peconic Baykeeper. We've been working closely with the Nature Conservancy, so we're actually working really close with environmental organizations to try to protect the clean water we have. And we have this awesome initiative going called the Ocean Friendly Gardens Program. And what it is, it incorporates a landscape element that reduces urban runoff. Urban runoff is the #1 source of ocean pollution, so it tries to reduce the amount of water that's running right off of our roads into our oceans and our ponds. So it incorporates native plants and ways to retain water and conserve water as a way of reducing pollution that could enter these waters.
Sure, absolutely. And it's funny because we were just earlier, we were walking along the roadways. We had some really heavy rains last night, and we were just looking at all of the water that's lined up along the shore, along the roadside, and how close it was to actual. In this case, it was close to the drain that feeds Hook Pond and that sort of thing. But I was asking Colleen, where does that water go, or where should it go? So how do you divert? How would you go about, like in that case? How would you go about? What would your thinking process be in taking that water along the roadside and having it directed to the proper location where it doesn't affect, our other water?
Right, so you can look at the areas where the water is piling up, like where you see areas of flooding. If you're able to, on the roadside, if you plant those areas with native plants, they will actually do a really good job at soaking up that water. That way it is filtered out before it does hit the watersheds. Ideally, that's the most ideal situation. What they're doing in Pussy's Pond right now, it's an incredible project done by Michelle Carlson. She created bioswales so that when the stormwater runs into the area right by Pussy's Pond, you're familiar with it. It collects that water and tries to sink it and spread it before it enters the pond. So that way it reduces the amount of polluted water that hits our oceans.
And they really have a great design working. I mean, they've made it accessible for people to still enjoy the natural scenery. They're going to be reshoring the edge of Pussy's Pond from a lot of the erosion caused, unfortunately, by muskrats in this situation. However, they're continuing to leave the habitat for them. They're just directing it off to the side so that this area of Pussy's Pond can reform itself. And I love the way those bioswales work.
Yeah.
I mean, they actually work, and I like her idea, Michelle's idea of the meadows on the side. And I gather that will all be naturally maintained by this water. Right.
They're native plants, so they require a lot less work.
Yeah. I just think the idea is great. It's to me, I like to call it self-maintaining landscape. It maintains itself, and it uses the resources that are natural, like directing the proper water to areas that you want to have flourish with the proper landscape. So I love the whole idea. I love you guys' work. I'm a big fan of the Surf Rider Foundation, which actually helps us every single time we do a cleanup, or I organize a cleanup, and I'm only new at that for the past 4 or 5 years now. But every time I do something, the Surfrider Foundation is eager to be there and help me out. We really appreciate that. We also appreciate what you're doing with the Clean Water Initiative, Colleen. Colleen is actually, after the new year, is going to be fortunate enough to return to the Galapagos to see family. But Santa Cruz, right?
San Cristobal.
Yeah. Oh, San Cristobal. Okay. A wonderful island that I personally haven't been to. However, I believe Billy, my friend Billy Strong, who we did the movie with, he was at San Cristobal and loved it. Said it was outrageous. So maybe it's something I'll get a chance to go back and enjoy that island. Meanwhile, Colleen's going to be going there. She's so lucky. But hopefully she'll return and continue with her great work here as well. So thanks, Colleen. I appreciate it.
And thank you for supporting Surfrider Foundation. We appreciate it as well.
Absolutely. Okay, on with the next story. Let's get going.
Hi, I'm Colleen Henn from the Eastern Long Island chapter, and I'd like to thank you for supporting the Surfrider Foundation. Please join our growing network to help protect ocean, waves, and beaches for generations to come. Long live the beach.
Come here, you. Hey folks, I'm here at Mainstone Beach, and I want to tell you a little story about something that went on just at the end of this past summer. We had a call for an osprey that was stuck in the nest, the osprey nest that is situated on top of a pylon that sits right off the jetty of the entrance to 3 Mile Harbor. It was called in by a fisherman who noticed that the bird was having a hard time taking off from the nest. When we arrived, me and the fisherman made an attempt to get out to the pylon with a long extension ladder that I had. However, we got out there and the current was a bit strong, the tide was high, and it was trying to suck us into the entrance to the harbor from the bay, so we weren't able to do it. The next morning, along with a volunteer who knew a little bit about this area, this bay and the tides, called me and let me know that the slack tide would have been early in the morning, that next morning, and he would be happy to come out with me and make an attempt in getting to this bird. So we did. We met here the next morning, and we were in fact able to walk a ladder out to the pylon and get it situated properly up against the nest, which is a very tall nest, as you can see in the picture. Now, as we're doing this, we had observed a little bit beforehand, and Mama had brought her a fish, which made us feel better because we knew at that point that the bird had been, no matter how long it had been tangled, it had been eating, which would have confirmed why the bird was in such good condition, other than not being able to leave the nest. It did have another sibling as well. So the sibling was clearly in distress, worried about its tangled brother or sister, and of course Mom kept bringing in the fish, but not being able to do much more. Every now and again the tangled bird would try to make an attempt but get pulled right back to the nest. It was a situation we had to fix real quickly. So fortunately, me and Mike met here early enough, and the tide was cooperative. It was at slack tide, and it was easy for us to get out there and put a ladder up. At that point, I climbed up and was able to untangle the bird from the fishing line. So once I was able to get the fishing line off the talons of the bird, she took a leap towards the edge of the nest. Meanwhile, Mama was flying above me. She wasn't dive bombing me. She was flying above me concerned, but she almost had a feeling that I was there doing some help. And in fact, I was. I was quickly able to free the bird. However, there was some residual string still attached to the osprey's wing, and it didn't work. So she went straight down into the water. Fortunately, Mike quickly swam out to this bird and was able to grab it and lift it above the water so that its head wasn't below the water. And while holding the bird and holding the talons, keeping it away from his hands, he walked it to shore, which at that point I met him. We brought him to the shoreline and we set him down. Mike removed the remaining fishing line that was obstructing his wing, and unfortunately it had been wrapped very tight for a bit of time, so the circulation wasn't immediately flowing into the wing, allowing the bird to take off. We fear that it had been tangled for several days. Anyway, we brought it to the vet clinic, which cleared it and was able to then transfer it to the wonderful folks at the Evelyn Alexander Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in Hampton Bays. And they did an absolute magnificent job rehabilitating this bird, getting him back into a healthy condition, getting its wing able to get him to fly again short distances and time until he was better to be released. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be released in time to be put back with his family at the nest. When we returned to the nest area, Mom and the other sibling had already migrated south. Fortunately, the people at the Evelyn Alexander Center has a network of wonderful people all around the country who can help in certain and specific situations, much like this. They had an osprey expert, gave them their best opinion on what to do, and of course, the folks at Evelyn Alexander followed that. The bird was transferred to a facility down south. They, at some point, released it, and I'm sure that everything worked out fine after that. Because meanwhile, by the way, when the ospreys do migrate down south towards the end of the summer, they don't specifically leave as a family. They're old enough to migrate individually, and most of the time they do. So right from the fisherman who called it in, to the people that released it down south. Great job done by everybody, and we really appreciate it. And also I want to thank Doug Kuntz, a wonderful and very well-known photographer here in East Hampton, for taking some great photos of me while I was doing the rescue. I was happy that he was able to come down and get a few shots, and I appreciate him allowing me to use these photographs to share with you. Wonderful photographs. Thanks, Doug. And okay, let's move on to the next story. The next thing we got going is something to talk about. I'm going to show you a couple little pictures of another little critter that we don't get to see much of. Number one, because they're nocturnal, and number two, they're kind of small. Number three is because, quite frankly, people don't even know we have them. But we do, and we have them quite a lot. They are flying squirrels. They are of the northern variety. As you can see, these flying squirrels are quite tame. They don't prefer to be handled, but once you have them in your hand, they seem to calm down. So as you can see, these flying squirrels have this flap of skin that's attached to their feet and their hands. So when they stretch their arms and legs, they're able to stretch out this skin that's in between, and it creates a bit of a parachute, if you will. So they climb up very high in these high trees, and then they jump and spread their arms and legs, creating this parachute, and they glide down onto things like roofs or onto other trees, maybe taller trees, so that they can climb even higher, and then jump from that and travel even longer distances. That's how these animals travel and stay safe, and by staying off the ground. However, it does still leave them vulnerable in trees. Okay, folks, we just rescued this little guy. It's a flying squirrel. He's chewing on my thumb. This is a flying squirrel, and we get a lot of these around here. A lot of people don't know we do, but we do. They're very difficult to trap because they're smaller than a gray squirrel, yet they're bigger than a mouse. So they elude a standard trap. They can't be caught in a live trap, and because they would come out the holes. And as you can see, they're chewers, so they can chew themselves out of a lot of things. Many people, this one's about ready to escape. He's going to get out in a minute. But if you can see, he's got webbing on his arms, and they're very fast. If I put him on the ground over here, you're going to see him go up this tree and watch. Okay. And he hides from me as he's going up the tree. But he'll get up that tree, and then he'll jump and glide to another tree. They're really awesome little guys. Come on. There you go. Folks, I'm here at another one of my favorite places. Of course, the shorelines are one of them, and the bays are another. But here at the nature trail, You know, this has always been one of my favorites since I was just a little kid, and we've talked about that a bunch of times. So I want to introduce you to the Walking Dunes, which is located off of Napig Stretch, on the opposite side of the bay of Lazy Point. So it would be on the east side. It's a beautiful area, and it's quite an interesting natural and ever-moving landmark that I want to kind of speak with you about. A lot of this I filmed, maybe 2 years ago, when I had an idea of doing a special on it. But I'd like to just show you some of this now, and of course welcome my friend who started filming this with me, Mike Bottini, who is always been a huge asset to our natural community and the wildlife and the water and the woods and everything that's natural here. A great friend to everyone. And I actually asked him to go on a little hike with me and tell me a little bit about the Walking Dunes, and he was gracious enough to do so. Never got to making the special, but I'd like to introduce you to some of the pieces that we filmed. So this is from a couple of years ago, but please enjoy this little segment I've put together for this special about the Walking Dunes. And thanks, Mike, for helping me out with that. Hi folks, welcome to a special episode of Imagination Nature. It's a special episode because we're in a very special place.
Now, you know this tree here?
That looks familiar.
So that's, on Long Island, that's considered a wetland species. Where I was in graduate school, that was an old field species, you know, an old field that they stopped haying it or grazing. That's gray birch. Very clumpy birch tree.
Huh.
Not long lived, not good for firewood. That tree's 40 feet tall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And most people know that if you throw a lot of topsoil up against a tree trunk, it rots, and it's a pathway for pathogens to attack it. This is totally sterile.
And that's why it doesn't
and it
rot.
doesn't hold water.
Gotcha.
So these things all survive. It's
That's
amazing.
why they survive. I gotcha.
That tupelo right there, that's probably 25 feet tall.
Oh, wow. That's amazing because it's in sand. Look at this slant right here.
This is a 40-foot tall tree here. This is 40 feet elevation right here, and that's growing in the water table, which is, you know, maybe 2 feet above grade.
Wow.
And that's another type of willow. Yeah, this is all basically a ring of swamp, and then it's pitch pine forest because the middle dune is built up a pile of sand and filled in the swamp, and it's all colonized by pitch pine. And you can see the ridge of the middle dune right there.
Yep.
Because it's got oaks, a lot of oaks on the very top. So this is the biggest one of the three in here, all part of the youngest.
And you say parabola meaning?
That's a geologic shape, and it's a U shape.
Gotcha.
Parabolic dune is the term for this. And what happens is you take a compass, stand over there, and line it up with the midpoint of this parabola between the two fins on either side. And that's northwest, southeast, perfectly.
Always.
No kidding.
Yeah. And lines right up with that wind sector.
Amazing.
Now this is red maple. held by the deer.
Yeah.
That's 45 feet tall.
This is beautiful.
We're standing
And these are all part of the crown. This is not a bunch of different. This is all one tree.
Sure.
Yeah, incredible.
I mean,
right?
look how.
And then down there, you've got red maple. You've got inkberry. You've got highbush blueberry, tupelo. There's willow. The soft.
Now I'm seeing the tip of a dune up there.
Yeah, there's this parabola. This is the main big parabola. There's a little one right over here.
Okay.
And then this is another big one right here that you're looking at. You're looking at that.
I got you. This is amazing. So over time, this sand is going to fill this area.
Yeah, this is still very active. That's where the old inlet was, basically. So you can see that that's where the shoal built up and eventually migrated to the shoreline.
Got it.
That's the source of sand. It's been a little amazing when you look at the volume of sand.
It is. It's amazing. It's like a quarry.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Now what happened is the wind kept pushing, and it could only move the sand that was dry. So once it got down to the water table, then
There's no dry sand.
It couldn't push any more sand up this way, and you had another cranberry bog develop.
Wow.
This is right about here was where the edge of the dune was in 1940.
Wow.
I scaled it off of the Stony Brook research paper.
Right.
Yeah,
Wow.
amazing. Right? I always
1940.
this would be a good interpretive sign. Right?
Yeah, it would right here. Look at that. Look how far it's walked back and continues. That's amazing,
So
Mike.
The forest was 50, 60 years old. I mean, it
Oh,
had
you
died.
mean the trees that got uncovered?
What the sign applies to?
Yeah, so what happened was the middle dune rolled through, killed everything, forest grew up. I mean, we're talking hundreds of years.
Uh-huh.
That middle dune hasn't moved very significantly since the mid-1800s. So before this dune actually got started, this area had some forest right here. And as this new dune came through, rolled through, smothered everything, kept on going, and trees were, like no branches, just the trunks.
In the past 60
In the
or
wake
since the
of
40s.
this. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Well, there's one that did make it. It's not very dramatic, but it's up here. This is also a good spot to see the sunbeams.
The acorns, I saw them. She's rehabbing a gray squirrel.
Oh yeah.
We just put it in a big.
So yeah, this is an old tree that
Oh yeah, look at
was
that.
growing before this dune came through. So this is close to where the dune was in 1940, covered. So this tree was growing 1900, yes.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
What's the yellow flower?
Golden.
No, that's the seaside goldenrod. Yeah. Where a monarch butterfly should be hitting hard, but they haven't done bad.
Dell saw one.
I've seen 20 this year, which is, and I have a milkweed patch in my backyard. I used to watch the chrysalis, form and open and da-da-da. Not one mating pair in my yard this year.
Wow.
Or last year, 2 years ago. So, cranberries.
I see so.
Not as
They're here.
big as I thought it was going to be based on the flowers. So I guess the drought did affect them a bit.
I want to show you something that pretty much sizes up what's going on here in a much smaller way. As you can see here, here's a section of sand here in the woods, and it's along this ridge line that goes this way, and we'll talk about that more. But as you see, there's kind of a dip in the top, and that's where the wind is constantly blowing southeast. The northwest wind blowing southeast and bringing that sand, cutting that U shape in the dune, and still pulling that sand southeast forward. And as you can see, I mean, it's literally building up until it, much like lava would, that creates an island. The sand is doing the same, creating this dune. And the dune continues to move and walks its way through this dense area, and it's just amazing how it's working, and it's got some terrain to work over. As we go southeast, it starts to come up the ridge, and this sand will in fact fill this dip here and then continue on as time goes by. So here we are at the top of the walking dune, the highest point, and as you can see, we're pretty much level with the trees here, and some of these trees are up to 50 feet. So the sign being a little bit outdated, you can tell that we have coverage here of close to 50 feet on some of these trees. For instance, you can see the top of this. I believe that's some sort of a birch, and that's the top. That's the top of the tree, and it's still alive. It's much like that one, and someday that one will be completely covered. And that's what the walking dunes are all about. Where are the sands coming from? Well, here we are at the top, and look at, you can just see the bowl created by the wind pulling the sand from the bay, and that cove of the harbor being a guiding light for these winds, pulling the sand that continues to erode from the sides, pulling it up the middle, and continuing to our southeast, which is quite amazing. Just think, someday all of this will be buried by sand. Much of it will remain alive until the lack of light kills it. But it's absolutely a spectacular uniqueness of this most awesome eastern end of Long Island. Just another example of why it's so important that we protect places like this, and we do the protecting right from the bottom up, and that means from the garbage right up to air pollution. As you can see over there to the north is another dune top, and here we are, the very top of the walking dunes. How magnificent of a place this is. Here's nature sculpting the earth. You see that sign at the bottom? That's the phantom forest. Many of those trees are in the background are the tops of trees that are no longer that were once vibrant as the forest behind me, and is now completely covered. And even the tips are, very few are still alive, but there are some. But it's this funnel that the winds, the persistent winds, have created that are allowing these dunes to travel to the southeast.